appreciate such a warm welcome. I just came back last night from Atlanta so I could be here this morning. It's an unbelievable thing. This is an Altoid, by the way. It's not a pill. A girl told me I had bad breath 20 years ago. I've been putting them in my pocket ever since. You ladies have power. There's power in that. No, but seriously, it was a great occasion, and I got to see some things that, well, I mean, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. There was a section of the Georgia Dome that they cut the lights out, and there was a section, a rectangle section, that they showed a rectangle light. I don't know how they pulled it off, but it shone just on this little section, and they had rounded up all the people with more than 50 years and set them in this one spot, and they shone the lights on the section. And it was people were 50 years or more, and some of them had 65 years. One of them had 66, the oldest dude, and he had a hard time walking, as you can imagine. I mean, I can't even fathom that. But and you saw the section, and what they did is they put them in a bowl, the names in a bowl, and they drew 12 names, and they got to 12 of them. They let them up on stage, and they got to speak about 4 or 5 minutes apiece. And what I was going to do, and I didn't know I was going to do it until I heard it last night, and then I knew I was going to do it, because I think if you ask anybody in AA who's serious, would you like to hear what people who have more than 50 years would have to say if they only had a couple of minutes? Would you like to hear what they had to say? And most people would say, well, hell yeah. I mean, they got 2 minutes to say something. What would they say to me? So there was 12 of them, and I remember a couple of things from the people that went up there. I remember their faces, and I thought that I would share a couple of the salient points that jumped out to me about some of the things that they said. One was a joke, which I always like to start off with something funny. And I hope that it's as funny as it was when they laughed. Maybe they just laughed at him because he had 58 years. I hope not. But honestly, I can say, is it too loud back there? Because I know this thing can be. Is it good? Okay. Because nobody has ever said, things that nobody has said is, I can't hear you, Mike. That has never been said by anyone. Other things have been said, as Anna pointed out, but the funny thing is that I was looking for the promises, because I use those. The funny thing about that is that those folks don't end up staying around. And these people that I'm talking about, there we go, did stay around. And the joke goes like this, and I can really attest to this because I can internalize a lot of these things that were shared. He said, I've only turned down one drink in my life. I was on an airplane. I was flying first class. And here comes the lady with the cart. And, sir, what drink would you like? And, well, I would like a Jack and Coke. And as she's fixing the drink, she looks to the guy next to me and says, what would you like, sir? And he says, with an angry grimace, I'd rather be with 100 prostitutes than have a drop of liquor pass my lips. And I looked to the lady and said, I'll pass on that drink. I didn't realize we had a choice. I guarantee you it's downhill from here. Now that I've gotten a laugh, we're okay. I thought about what Anna was saying, and there's we laugh a lot. But underneath, like our book talks about, there's a deadly earnestness, and when she talked about something that was shared by one person, mind you, in a meeting, it made me think about how we sort of suspend in sort of like a perpetual détente. A détente is where two warring individuals would agree that their two heads of state would come talk to each other to try to work this thing out before they had to drop the bomb, We're in a sort of a state of perpetual détente in AA, aren't we? Because we may be, as the book says, people who would not ordinarily mix. We may come from different walks of life, and we have maybe different belief systems. I think we all can. But we suspend that, and we come in here for what? We come in here for Tradition 1, which is often misunderstood. When it says unity, people think that it's supposed to mean that we're all supposed to get along. But that's not what that means, is it? What it means is that we have unity of purpose. It would be fallacy to think that we could all get along, especially if we suspended détente and started talking about what we really want to talk about. But the reason AA works is because we come in here, we have this perpetual détente, truce, if you will, and we talk about the things that are important to us, the one thing we have in common. And I think that has value. And the longer I've been here, it can jump off the page when, when somebody's trying to share and they try to slip something in, and you can just feel it go across the room like a wave. Boy, you shouldn't have said that, brother. I don't want to be that guy. And you learn over time, although there are sometimes no written rules, you learn how to act in here. And newcomers don't know how to act unless old-timers tell them. And I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And it's funny that I say the way it is, because there's only one woman in that entire group of 50 or more years sober people. Her name was Sis. She had 59 years. I can't tell what everybody had, but most of them had much more than 50, what was interesting about it. Her name was Sis. I can't tell you where she was from, but the refrain that she kept saying was, that's just the way it is, folks. And she said that she had a sponsor. She of course had a man sponsor because there was no women. Marty Mann was the first woman, actually, and in AA, and she came up with what's called the Marty Mann test, which in our book it talks about go try some controlled drinking, but that was based on the Marty Mann test, which was get a case of beer, drink 2 beers a day for 12 days. If you can do that, you're not an alcoholic. That is the Marty Mann test from her. And this was the other lady, I guess, the other woman. Although there was a lady named Lil, you may be interested to know, because I think if you ask anybody in AA, where did the 13th step come from? Everybody would want to know that. Who is that? Who got that honor? Right. Well, there's always an answer to any question. Their name was Vern and Lil. Lil was the lady's name. And in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, it was said that Vern and Lil consummated the 13th step on Dr. Bob's examination table. That's the quote right out of the book. I find that to be extremely interesting. And they didn't let ladies come to the meetings a little while after that because y'all were distracting the men. That was the other quote. And I'm so glad that things have changed, because I am telling you, I could not get as enthused, as excited as I am right now without some ladies in here. I just cannot get excited about speaking to a bunch of men. I'm just sorry about it. I just can't do it. Thank God I can't do it. God love you, whatever. But not your boy here. So glad y'all are here, ladies. But Sis, let's get back to old Sis, because that's what's important. What does the lady with over 50 years have to say? Not this guy. So she says she had a man sponsor, and he told her to she went to a meeting every day for 3 years, and she said he was tough. But I did what he said. And I went to meetings and I worked the steps. And I'm still here. And that's how it works, folks. She pointed her little finger. It had about 6 knuckles on it. I'll never forget. I mean, you could just feel it. I mean, that's the thing that you got from her. That's how it works, folks. Another guy came up there and he was talking about how shy he was. Now, he didn't look as old as he obviously was. He definitely was a pickle. I understand that we get pickled, and he was in suspended animation or something, because he did not look 70, I'm just going to tell you. He was in great shape. But he was talking about how shy he was. And I could really relate to that. And I'm also going to try to relate personally relate to the things that these people said. And I agree with Sis. I need to go to meetings. I need to work the program, which is in the book. And that's how it works. I can't just do one or the other. I have to have the whole package. And I agree with Sis. That's how it works, folks. And he said that he was shy, and I've always been shy. Us shy folks, and you know who you are. I may not appear shy because I'm real comfortable up here. I've done this a lot of times, and but I'm really shy. Like if I meet you, and and people have told me they thought I was arrogant. But people who are shy, and you know what I'm talking about, it can be mistaken for arrogance, but it ain't arrogance at all. We're just a little bit scared. I'll own it. And the thing about this program, that what makes it work, is I got to first own who I am to know where I'm going. I got to own it. And I got to own that I have this affliction, right? This disease. I got to own it. I can't go forward in the steps just to do the steps and not really believe it. I got to own it. I got to be like in the 12 and 12 on 58, where it defines humility, and it talks about I got to realize who and what I have become so I can move toward what I can be. And I believe in that. I got to realize who and what I have become to know where I'm going, to know what I need to work on. And a lot of times, and especially with this, I need to realize, when I realize who and what I have become, there's only one alternative. I need God's help, right? Because obviously, if I'm honest with myself and objectively look, and the book talks about when a newcomer is able to objectively look at his past, he begins to be able to fearlessly rather than fearfully face it. With the help of someone else and with the help of the encouragement that knowing that God is with me, this can be done. So he's up there talking about he's shy, and it made me think of, and he talked about the things that people who are shy can do in the program to try to give back. Because, not everybody's an extrovert. And then he talked about, the ashtrays, which we don't have smoking meetings anymore. And he talked about the things that he could do as a shy person that was scared to share at meetings. Petrified, he said. Absolutely scared to death. And I understand that. I don't think I shared for my first 90 days, and now you can't get me to shut up. I'm bad about it, I know. I need to work on that. And I have been. There's actually been 2 meetings this week where I didn't share. I'm owning it. No, but in the 12 and 12, if you're shy, on 110, it talks about an entire list of things that we can do that are 12-step work in the very best sense of the word. It talks about we can show up, have a smile on our face, help with the cookies or coffee, maybe shake some hands. There's a list of things, and I think if you're shy, you might want to break out your 12 and 12, maybe dust it off. And on 110, it talks about that list, and I think that list has been very beneficial to me. And anytime a 12-step meeting comes up in the topic, I always go to 110 and say there's other things besides taking folks through the steps, because not everybody feels comfortable that they know them well enough, or you got to know the book good enough. I mean, I know because I've thought these things, and there's so many other things. Another guy came up And he had a Army Airborne hat. He still had it. Had the year, it was forever ago, 1947. He said, I sobered up 4 years. Oh yeah, this was cool. I sobered up at the 20-year anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and that's the last time I've been bombed. Man, I was like, that's cool. Everybody in there was like, that's fucking. You know he worked on that. That shit was primo. You can't make that up. You can't make that up. So one guy comes up, that was not this guy. This guy comes up with an Army Airborne hat. And of course it's got AA on it. And this is his old Airborne. I mean, this guy's some kind of hardcore paratrooper, Rambo dude, but he don't look it now, but he was then. You can make no mistake. They don't just let you in there. So he had his little hat on, and he took his hat off, and he I got this AA thing when I was 18 years old, was in the war, and he said a little bit about that. And he said it had AA on it back then. God was trying to tell me something when I was 17 years old. I just didn't listen. And I got the message. I don't know why I just got emotional when I said that, because I don't know. It's I'm just thinking about listening to what those people said, I hope I'm doing it justice by sharing some of it with you. And it feels good to have gotten the message. Another guy got up there, and he really didn't say much. He was a Latino, and he talked about how he was a Latino, and he had 60 years sober, and was in the war, and he was talking about being drunk over there in Japan, and he said, then I started talking Spanish to the Japanese, and they ran him out of the thing, but every time he'd say a sentence, he would have this funny look on his face, and he'd just go, and then the crowd would erupt. He would do this, come on. I guess he was just high on the dope of that crowd. I mean, I can only imagine what it would look like, 60,000 people from this little stage, because you couldn't see the people. They were this small. You had to watch the big screen, which is so crazy. You go to a concert, you spend $100 for a ticket, and there they are on the stage, and you can probably see them pretty good, but I'm watching the TV. I ought to be at home. I know. I'm just reflecting to myself. There were several others. I wanted to end with the one that really gave me some punch. It really affected me. We've covered about 6 or 7, but he got up there and he said, to see what's always cool when somebody has a refrain, which means he'd say it, and then he'd say something, and then he'd say it, and then he'd say something, and then he'd say it. And he said, I came in AA, and I'm, like I say, I'm internalizing all these, and I'm saying them because I believe each one of these, and I hope that that's coming across. I'm not just telling you some story. He said, I came in AA, I had an 8th grade education, and 20 years later, I got awarded a doctorate of philosophy, PhD. Thank you, AA. And I too was failing out of school, and now I'm a CPA and a lawyer, and because of AA, because of it enabling me to have the monkey off my back and enable the things about us that make us us are able to shine. Even our book on 21 talks about so much good things about us, and I really believe that, and I highly encourage you to go look at that page, because a lot of times when we talk about that page in meetings, all we hear is the negativity. He's more or less always insanely drunk. He pulls the house of cards down on himself. He's the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's all we hear. But what's on that page talks about he may be one of the finest fellows in the world. He has special skills and abilities. He has a fine family and friends. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world. See, that's what I hear today. See, if there's anything that AA has given me, it's the ability to make my glass half full. Thank you, AA. And he said several things, and I think my little refrain has lost its punch. I don't know why I'm feeling a little emotional. Maybe it's because I'm in uncharted territory. I didn't know what I was going to say. I'm back looking at the people with 50 years and getting a little shy, and I'm getting a little emotional about it. So my little refrain about thank you, AA, which I had envisioned I was going to do it as good as he did, but the one thing he ended with after he went through several things, thank you, AA. He was married to a woman for 60 years. Thank you, AA. Which I have not been.
Yeah.
I've had some close calls. I still have a flesh wound. But it takes what it takes. And it's like when our book talks about, take away my difficulties so victory over them will bear witness to those that I would help. I think that no matter what goes on and what comes down the pike in AA, we have a duty. Because when we go through it sober, we can share in a meeting or share with a newcomer that I got through that sober, because I guarantee you somebody else is going through it or fixing to go through it, or they're going to go through it later and they're going to remember that you said you went through it, whatever it is, and they'll be able to look you up and say, how did you get through that sober? Because I can't imagine another second. And at the end of his thing, he did several of those, thank you, AA, and he goes, and I don't have to drink anymore. Thank you, AA, and the whole place, went crazy. So that's the end of the what I want to talk about the people with 50 years. I hope I've done it justice. I hope you could picture yourself there listening to them and at least get the value of what they tried to say with their couple of minutes and their desire to help. What could they say to somebody in 2 minutes that may help them to come back? That's how it works, folks. Thank you, AA. I didn't know I had a choice. And if one thing AA has shown me is that I may not have had a choice, but once I work the steps, it gives me a choice to let the things about me that have true value shine through. Thank you, AA. I want to talk about a little bit about my childhood, but it's going to be a little different. Number one, I don't tell any war stories when I do my talks. I find it to be sometimes divisive. I mean, you hear me say one substance, you didn't do it, you shut me down. I know how it is because I've been there. War stories have very little value, especially in a setting like this. One-on-one, sure. You're working with somebody, you tell them, yeah, I tried to quit for good, I'm in it, but I drink, all that stuff. But in meetings, hey, it has very little value. I don't do it. God's blessed me with a knowledge base to where I need to share something about recovery, because I think that's what we're here for. Bill W. was quoted as saying, you may find this interesting, which I did, and I'll try to quote it correctly, in regards to sharing war stories in meetings. The quote was, out of AA comes of age. He goes, there was little talk of drunk stories in those days. Frankly, it was nobody's business. It was between you and your sponsor. In meetings, we made everybody share about, that was when he had control. And sometimes I think I wish Bill was still in control, because I'm telling you, I've studied about the way it was then and what they talked about and the success rate, and I see what it is now, and I'm thinking, hey, Bill, I wish you were in control here, buddy. I see a lot of lives being lost. Do you feel me? He said there was very little talking drunk stories in those days. It was nobody's business. Frankly, it was between you and your sponsor. We made everybody share about recovery, because in doing so, we gave ourselves something to live up to. That's it. Because see, the history of my disease was about me giving myself something to live down to, and I accomplished that with vigor. And if I'm not careful, I'll come in AA and I'll be trying to pull that off. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been in the meetings. Somebody will say, oh, I smoked up a house. Or I smoked up a BMW. I tipped it up to the bumper and smoked the whole thing. I mean, you know, you just feel them bragging. And then the next dude says, I smoked up 2 BMWs. And the next thing you know, it's this one-upmanship going around the room. And who's got the worst war story? And you're going, what is going on here? And if you're telling me you ain't been to that meeting, you've been to that meeting. That ain't AA. I don't care what kind of A it is. So, me trying to brag about war stories is... And when I hear it, I'm like, really? I believe what Bill said. Giving myself something to live up to. Now that's where we want to go. Last, something to live up to. Because when I give myself something to live up to, somebody's heard me say it, and I've heard me say it. And one of the reasons that the steps work so well is because, especially in 4 and 5, when I hear myself say it out loud, that I have these defects. You remember what we talked about beginning of the thing? I got to know, I got to own it and realize who and what I have become. When I say it out loud, it has more of a value, because all of a sudden I hear myself say it. It's a living thing. It affirms that this is real. I can't hide it anymore. And I am motivated. Almost, it's like I'm motivated by hearing it out loud. That's not me, what I just read. That's not me. I got to own it. I know. It was me if I looked in the mirror. But that's not the me I want to be. And for the first time in my life with these steps, I get to move forward and forge forth in fair weather or foul, however falteringly. And shape the future I want to have. Shape the future I want to have. Victim card.
Bam.
Blaming it on others. Own it. Move on from it. Thank you, AA. I want to share a couple of things about my childhood, and I don't share anything about my childhood. This is going to have direct bearing on what we're here to talk about. See how time flies? See, they ought to allot 2 hours for a talk. It's 15 till. And I don't even feel like I've said anything yet. Some people in here may think I've said something. I hope so. Because time has gotten away from me. I'm supposed to cover certain things. But the thing about my childhood I want to talk about is the things that have direct bearing to what we talk about here. Superfluous information about my childhood that has no bearing. Nobody cares, because I've been where you're sitting and I've listened to speaker meetings and I don't care. And I've also been in the speaker meetings where it is reaffirmed time after time again. 95% of the people that do speaker meetings, it's 5 till and they're still telling drunkalog stories. And they're like, ooh, time has gotten away from me. I'm in AA. Have a nice day. That ain't the way it's supposed to be. This in here ain't going down that way. I know it's more comfortable to hear war stories rather than something to live up to, but my job is fixed. It is to say what I need to say, what I know needs to be said. Sometimes what I say, I know it when I'm fixing to say it, that there's going to be some people that ain't going to like what I say. But I've chosen the job that I have here. And I know I need to, as Sis said, tell it like it is, because that's how it works, folks. One thing about my childhood that really accentuates the fact that I was dealing with some of these things even before I took a drink. There was these cards, these stickers that I used to collect, and it could have been baseball cards for you or Barbie cards for somebody else, but every card that you would go to the store and it'd have a piece of Topps bubble gum in it, and it'd have a few cards. There was a set of these cards, and at the bottom right-hand corner it would say 2 of 200 or something. It was a set of these cards. And then next year they'd come out with another set because they want the kids to be buying them stickers. And I would get them stickers and I would lay them out, and I would be counting them out. I'd have to have them in order, and I emphasize have to have them in order. I would have to have the whole set. I would have 50 of one card because they hide that one that's hard to get, and there ain't many of them you know what I'm talking about. It's like the Monopoly Boardwalk. You're going to have to go eat you 100 pounds of French fries to get Boardwalk on that little thing. Man. It's crazy. And that's another thing. I've lost 30 pounds in the last 12 weeks. Thank you, AA. Because what I have found is that when we put our minds to something, we're like a pit bull. We don't let go. I just never could stick to anything. You know what I mean? Man, I'd have so many irons in the fire. Man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I swear I meant it when I said it. I mean, I am. And if I told you about it, you'd believe that I meant it. The problem is next month I'm on to somebody else, and people started thinking I'm looking like a fool. He don't know what he's saying from 1 minute to the next. He thinks he believes what he's saying, but he ain't following through with nothing. We got follow through with these steps in God. Thank you, AA, right? So I had to have the full set. So when I would get the full set, I would have all my cards and I would look through them with this sense of elation, almost like the same sense of elation I'd get after I'd have a few drinks. All was right with the world. I have the full set. It's in my hand. I've got it. Like Bill said, I have arrived. I fancied myself a leader. I've got the full set of cards. And all of a sudden, in about 10 minutes, something starts changing. Life is not as good as it was. I want that feeling again. Out comes the rubber band. I put it around it. I toss the stack in the toy box that I still have with the cards at my house. And I'm on to the next set because I'm not okay with me. Now that was me as a kid. No drink. And if you can relate to that, you may be in the right place. If you can relate to that in any way, it don't have to be cards, it can be something else. I had an addictive personality before I ever walked in the door. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why we talk about alcohol being just a symptom, that the bottles were just a symbol of something that was already there, that I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't articulate what it was. But once I did, I had to own it, and only then can I go far from it. Another thing about my childhood that has a direct bearing is, I was an only child. And you may think, well, what does that have to do with it? Well, because Dr. Bob in his story talks about he was an only child and it engendered the selfishness that played such an integral part in bringing about my alcoholism. And the reason I want to accentuate on that is not just because Dr. Bob said it and because I'm an only child and because I came by my selfishness honestly because the world did revolve around me. I didn't have to share myself, my toys, which may be why I have not been married, because I would have to share myself. Wait a second. What an order, I can't go through with it. Right? I'm owning it. Because I can share until we can study the big book, do you feel me? But truly sharing myself with someone, that sounds like a scary proposition. I'm just going to say it. I'm still working on it. I'm a work in progress. I know I'm not there. That's why I keep coming back. I mean, as Anna said, I know the book pretty good. I could probably recite the 12 steps off the wall, as some people can. But there's something about this disease that wants to tell me once I get some knowledge base, or I've worked through the 12 steps, or I've got the full set of chips and all the colors are in my pocket. Oh, wow. Doesn't that play right into what I had as a child? They got a set of chips. Okay, I've got every single one of them chips all the way to the metal. I've got my set. We will holler. And you think that's funny, but that's what happens to most people. I'm just here reporting the truth. So the reason I want to accentuate on the selfish thing is because I could say, oh, well, it's because I'm an only child. I'm selfish. That's just the way I am. You're supposed to be okay with it. And then I'm going to flip the script on our good old saying, and I'm going to say, principles for personalities, you're supposed to be okay with it. But see, AA is not based on me taking something that happened and saying, that defines me. That's just the way it's got to be. Instead of me using that as an excuse, well, I came by my selfishness, it wasn't my fault, so that's just who I am. No, I learned who I was, and now I'm moving toward what I can be. Thank you, AA. And the last story about my childhood is I was in the garage helping my father. See, and I planned on going through all the 12 steps. But what I've tried to do is I cover each one of these points. I try to tie it to the positive end of the steps. Relate, tie it. Here's where we're going. I was here, but now I'm not. I'm there. I was there, but now I'm not. I'm here. And this is how I got there. Because when you think about the steps, when you think about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, most people here, that's 2/3 of the disease, right? What it was like, war stories. What happened, the worst war story. What it's like now, 5 till if you're lucky. What actually, when I hear that statement, and you'll never hear it the same way again, hopefully, because it'll change your life like it did me. What it was like is the negativity. What happened is the steps. That bridges the gap. What happened is the steps. And what it's like now is after the steps. So all of a sudden, it turns into 2/3 the solution. I couldn't even see it before because nobody ever told me. Nobody ever told me I had it wrong. Nobody ever told me, Mike, that's what that means, dummy. I just thought what I thought. I came in here with my own definitions of what I thought things were, and I based everything that happened on that. But that's why in the promises, it talks about we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. And I can't spot new freedoms with old ideas. I have to relearn definitions of things. I have to go to the Webster's Dictionary from time to time and look words up. You know, I've heard people say that this big book was written on a 5th grade education, but I am telling you, I have 30 letters after my name, 2 masters, a doctorate, and a postdoctoral degree, and I still look words up in the big book. So take that for what it's worth. Because I want to know what I'm talking about. And more importantly, I want to know what the message Bill is trying to give me. Because if I miss it, I may die. But if I look it up, I find this constantly. And I know you can tell what I'm talking about. And Anna too, and others. Is that he condensed it so well with the language he used. If he had to expound and explain everything he said, it'd be 564 pages. So in essence, we've gotten lucky that it's only 164, but to get the true gift of it, I've got to study it enough, and that, my friends, takes a little work. Oh, and that's what another one of the dudes said. He came up there, and the first thing he was saying is, if you think you're just going to go to meetings and that's going to be it, you got to work the program. I was thinking, man, this dude sounds like me. I mean, he was hardcore. There was only one of them that came up there talking like that. You got to work the program. You got to work the steps. That's where it is. That's where it is. But it does take work. I wish I could tell you that it was so easy, but I got to put it in perspective. This is the easier, softer way, but I have to put it in perspective about the amount of effort that I took to stay out there. See, sometimes I can miss these small successes in here, these day-to-day improvements, and I'm thinking I might could think I'm not getting any better. But that's why I constantly keep that door open to the past. Now, I don't walk back through it. It says we don't shut the door on the past. And I look back through there, and I look back to page 52 where it talks about those bedevilments. I was prey to misery and depression. I couldn't make a living. Had a problem with personal relationships. Feeling of uselessness. All that are the exact opposites of the promises, by the way. You can go to a site called thejwalker.com, and he's got the bedevilments sitting right next to the promises and shows how they cancel each other out, one after another. Now that's cool. I find that cool. So I'm in the garage helping my father, and we're talking about under the theme of I could have taken it as an excuse and just said that's just the way it is. I was in the garage. I was helping my father. He always made me help him work on things, and I must have knocked something over. I don't know. You know what a kid does. He don't know what he's doing. I wasn't watching, but boy, my dad was military dad. It's got to be this way. I mean, it was tough at times. You know, I used to think I wish I had the cool mom that would smoke pot with you and shit, you know. But now that I look back, I'm glad that I had what I had, even though the story I'm going to tell you. Because it was 99% good, but this one you're not going to think very highly of my father. I'm just going to tell you right now. And I would never bring this up to him. It would be a joke with all that he's done for me if I was to bring this up to Dad and try to pawn this off as some excuse and play the victim card with the greatest man I've ever known. But the reason I'm telling the story is because we come in here with things that have happened. All right, so we're in the garage. I knock some tool over, and he looks at me, and he would always say the worst things, the calmest. He'd say, "Son, don't you know you fuck up more than you fix?" I'm going to tell you, it took a minute for that to sink in, like 30 years. It's probably why I have 30 letters after my name. It's probably why I stayed in academia and tried to be things. To prove that I don't fuck up more than I fix, right? I mean, we come in here with things. You can say you don't. But I could have said, well, I could be a piece of shit because Dad said I fuck up more than I fix. I could have just used that as a cop-out, my friends. And I could have rested that on that oasis, no problem. But see, AA gave me the ticket to not having to do that. Thank you, AA. Right? So, I don't feel like I honestly, and look at here, time's out. I will tell you this, though. I didn't stop drinking at 12. No, that's usually my ticket to go on another 5 minutes. Would anybody mind if I take a couple of minutes to wrap up? I mean, even though it's 12, I can't just stop talking now. I got to wrap up everything I've said. That's the way I've been trained to do. My father used to make me go to Toastmasters when I was young, about 15, 16, 17. And I had to go there. It's a public speaking club, and I had to be in there as a kid with people with suits on, and they teach you how to public speak. And I hated him for it then. But now I appreciate it. And what they told me is people remember two things from any talk, and I don't care what it is. They remember what you said in the beginning, and they remember what you said at the end. So I must say what I'm going to say. I must say it. And then I must say what I just said. Otherwise, communication has not taken place. So I wanted to get into the steps, but I tried to, as I went along, tried to touch on several steps. I wanted to share about what the people who had over 50 years said, and I think we had a good time with that. And I feel better having heard some of those things that they said. That's how it works, folks. God was trying to tell me something even when I was younger. It's about the program. Thank you, AA. Remember those guys? I feel like I'm with them, man. And there's no reason they can't be with me on my AA journey. I've heard what they had to say. Some maybe in a week from the grave, but they have said it. And I have it right here. I've heard the message. I got the message, sis. You know, there's something that I always share at the end of my shares, and this is one of the rare talks, and I tell you, I can't explain why I've gotten emotional several times. I thought it was because I was talking about the people with 50 years, but then when I talked about my dad saying that, and I don't really carry that around like I'm all hurt about it. Look, think about how long it was. I mean, we're talking longer ago than I care to admit. 40 years. That was 40 years ago. But I hear it in my ear as if I just heard it. But I'm not upset about it. But I did get emotional about it. Maybe because it helped me to go back. Sometimes we need to relive this pain to realize how far I've come. You know, and I want to share this about the 12th step because there's a lot of newcomers in here, and I know for a fact that you're feeling like I felt, and you're going, I don't know how, if I have what it takes. They're talking about all this spiritual stuff, and I can't get out of my mind how the preacher at the last church I won, Rob, took the money, and I can't separate spirituality from religion, and I don't know if I got it in me anyway. Look at all the things I've done. But the key to it is in the 12th step, isn't it? It talks about having had an awakening. What does that mean? That means it was already there. It was just asleep. It's already there. That's got to be good news, right? It's already there. I don't got to go find it. I don't got to get somebody to give it to me, and I guarantee you it can't be bought. Because when I broke in that house in 1984, to get some more money for some solid alcohol, there was a little voice that said, Mike, this is not a good idea, buddy. You know that voice I'm talking about. But I did not listen to it, and I went on in there, and I did what I had to do. I need to reflect back on that and realize that that voice was always there. What the program gives me an opportunity to do is not just hear it, but to heed it. That means to act upon it. Didn't Bill say in his story, ominous warning that I failed to heed? He's been sending me messages. Mike, that's not a good idea. I had to learn my own lessons, and I have to own the choices that I've made. But the good news about the 12th step is that the awakening means it was already there. These steps just help wake me up to the truth. Sometimes it's bitter pill. Sometimes it's not comfortable. Sometimes I'd rather ignore it and not say it out loud like 4 and 5. But I want this way of life enough to do what I've been asked to do, even if I don't think it makes any sense. Because I want the results that somebody has that I'm asking to take me through the step. So what I want to share, and it's as simple as this, and it encapsulates everything. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, and I'll pass.